Hey everybody, Matt here from Matt's Movies, Music and More with my special guest today, Andrew. We are doing a unique video today, which is that as this video airs, do you know, Andrew, that this channel has now been going for 1 year?
Oh my god, where's the time gone?
Yeah, it's gone really quick, and I'm overwhelmed with how things have gone on the channel so far. We've done really well. As we do this, we have exceeded 1,000 subscribers already, which is amazing for a channel of this size. So we thank you all at home personally for it. Granted, the view counts of the videos are relatively low, but we hope that with your word of mouth, it can hopefully spread the word on to everyone else to check them out. So we thought that we would reward you and tell you a little bit about us. So we posted on social media that we were planning on doing a Q&A video, which means that you could ask us questions that you want about the channel and about things that we personally like and stuff like that. So we thought it would be a good idea to see if that would, how many of you out there would want to take part, and we were extremely surprised with how many questions came through. That many questions, in fact, that some of them we had to whittle down to as few as we can, really. There's that many. So that's really good. We don't know what questions are going to be asked, but let's just say that there's a lot there to get through. And what we want to do is we're going to quickly say that we thank you all for asking them, and also due to Data Protection Acts, we're not going to mention any of the names of the people that asked the questions. So we're just going to have each question read out as it was asked. Although some wording was slightly changed just to make it a bit easier to understand in some cases. Let's start with the first question, I guess. So, how are you looking forward to this?
It's been a long week, but I want to do right by our viewership, so I hope I can answer them in a satisfactory manner.
So let's go on with the first question then. That's a good question. I have been a big fan of watching YouTube for a long time, and I have subscribed to many channels that have topics that interest me, mostly like movie reviews, music reviews, that sort of thing. And some people that I tend to watch from America, some of them I think are really interesting, and others I kind of thought straight away I'm put off by the way that they shoot their videos. Sometimes they have these great thumbnails. You might have seen it when you go on YouTube, which is that some people have great thumbnails and you think, oh, I'm going to watch this video because they've used some good images. And then when you watch their videos turn out to be rather disappointing, either because they're not very engaging as a presenter, or they're hesitant, or they're nervous, or they tend to film in quite poorly lit environments, that sort of thing. And being a person that's been into movies my whole life and music and other things, I've always been a big fan. I've always felt that I can talk about movies and my other hobbies religiously, and I think we've always done that together anyways. And so I thought maybe I should have a go at doing it. I mean, I've always been extremely afraid. I've always suffered with severe shyness and stuff like that, and it's been a long road, and I've gotten better with this. I think from when we did the first video, which I did for the channel, which was the Robocop video, all that year ago.
All that year ago.
Yeah, all that year ago. I kind of think that I struggled really hard with that video. That was a very difficult one to get used to, watching yourself on camera and talking and hating how you look and hate how your voice sounds. And I've gotten better at it now, and I'm liking it a lot more. I think I do a good job as a presenter. I look at myself as a presenter when we do our series together. What did you think? I think as I ask the questions here, I kind of look at that as a little bit of a Siskel and Ebert style sort of homage. Would you say that that's fair? For what did you think?
I think when it comes to double acts, reviewing movies, everyone's going to bring up Siskel and Ebert as the template, but I think it's a fairly apt and very appropriate for us at least.
So yeah, so there is a few.
I mean, if that makes me the Siskel intellectual caustic, verbose type, then I'll gladly go with that parallel.
That's fine. I'll take the Roger Ebert part, that's not a problem. But yeah, regarding YouTube inspired, I will be honest with you and say that one of the biggest inspirers that I had was when I went up to a special event in London just over a year ago, not too long before the channel begun. I'd had these ideas that I wanted to follow in the footsteps of these particular YouTubers that I was watching. I was watching this channel, and his name is Oliver Harper, and he does movie reviews and retrospectives. And he was working with two other guys at the time, Duncan Casey and Richard Jackson. And I got to meet both Oliver and Richard Jackson up in London at an event that they were doing for a live video for their YouTube channel. And they were really, really nice and really supportive. And I sort of said, you know, I might consider doing something like this myself, and I think you guys have inspired me to do it. And as the year has gone on since the first launch of the video, I've had excellent feedback from both Oliver and Richard, who now do their own separate channels. So you have Oliver's own channel, Oliver Harper, and you also have Richard Jackson working with Duncan Casey on his own channel, which is Valverde Broadcasting. So they have been big supporters of the channel for me. So I think those two really have influenced me to go in this direction. So hopefully that answers the question. I know it's a bit long-winded.
I think that very comprehensively answered that question. Thank you.
Cool. So let's...
Oh,
we say that at the same time?
Fair enough.
I'll let you answer it, given I've been talking a lot.
School. We went to the same school together. Matt was a year or two above me, so compared to other kids that were at the school, I may not have personally, I feel I may not have conversed with Matt as much as others, but I did converse with him, and I can confirm that even as a young boy, I was going to say teenager, but I think even slightly earlier than that, he was always, I don't know what point, if there was an exact point where you always talked about what video games you were playing, or what movies, and what, when the DVD boom, when the DVD market really took off, you were always talking about what DVDs you had bought or what movies you wanted to watch. So I'll always remember that as the sort of conversations that we shared.
I think that's something that I've always had in my life, which is that whenever it's been a case of, you probably remember when we were at school, which is that often I would often say, oh, I went out and bought this, whatever, and probably other people who would overhear it probably think, oh, he's bragging, he's lying, or whatever. But whatever I brought and I owned, I would always be honest, that's what I brought and that's what I owned. And the fact that we had a connection through our love of video games. We used to love the TV show Games Master, and we used to play the old retro consoles and stuff like that. And the fact that we don't live too far from each other, we had that in common as well.
This is true, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know, anything else you want to sum up with that?
It's probably towards the end of my time at school, I did what GCSEs, if that means anything to audiences outside the UK. I'd started taking academic qualifications, which included media studies. This led to performing arts, and then this led to film studies. So I became very well versed in watching movies. So I think something clicked at that sort of adult point where I could finally understand or empathise perhaps with what Matt was always going on about. I'd say at school lunch tables, but now at pub tables at this point.
I apologise if that's affected your, you know, the years as they've gone on or whatever, but I reckon that
I can barely remember school, to be honest. Other people seem to be better at that than I am, but
okay.
Does that cover
Yeah,
a great
I think
deal?
so.
Like I said, you were in the
year above.
above.
Yeah, I'm a year older than that.
I think it's we among other, you leave school, you have a certain small group of people that you want to get back in contact with, even if you go to college or you get a job, and it took a while.
Yeah, that was the thing. There was a 10-year gap, wasn't there?
Yeah, I'm trying to be sensitive here, but eventually Matt was brought into the fold, and the more we started conversing about, well, Matt would go back into his habit of talking about things. I'm talking about things, and there was a sort of spark in Matt's eye at that point.
But no, I'm happy that we become friends, and school was a big deal to me, and I think the way I've become is because of my time at school, and having you as a friend I think helped as well. So I thank you for that.
Well, thank you for thinking of me like that. A bit of context first. Yes, I am a Doctor Who fan. I've got all the Doctor Who DVDs. I've got all the Doctor Who novels published from 1991 to 2005, and I've got all the Doctor Who audio drama CDs and a lot of the Doctor Who reference books. So I'm very well versed in the history and the canon of the show. I got into it with the 1992 repeat of the Time Meddler. So this does mean I became a fan during what we call the wilderness years. So it's probably hard for people, you young people, to appreciate with your David Tennants and your Christopher Ecclestons and your Matt Smiths and your Peter Capaldis and big BBC One show with big stars and lots of money. But there was a time when Doctor Who was a dead show. It was cancelled. It was seen as a nerdy, old, cheap property. It only existed in comic strips and novels and unofficial fan magazines and products, and that's what I grew up with. And when I was a little boy and I told everyone I was a Doctor Who fan, everyone laughed. Well, no one's laughing now. Cue Robert De Niro saying, "You can say that again, pal," if you've seen the Joker trailer. I could probably waffle on and on about obscure Doctor Who ephemera and characters and stories I like, but I'll answer your question first. Given your favourite Doctor is the one that you grow up with. For a while that was Sylvester McCoy, but I'm actually going to say Paul McGann here. To most people, he's the Doctor who appeared in one failed American TV movie pilot and you never saw him again. But thing is, his character appeared in a lot of books and comic strips over the 9 years from 1996 to 2005. And they even got Paul McGann himself to do the Big Finish audio dramas. So his character has actually become well fleshed out. In the TV movie, he's very much a bubbly, lively optimist who's capable of improvisation and seeing joy, and he's perky, but as the stories have gone on, we've seen a lot happen to him. He's been to a divergent universe. He's lost his TARDIS at one point. He's lost his ability to see the colour violet. He's been the victim of a time-travelling voodoo cult. And as we found out in the new TV series, it all culminated in with being a broken, bitter husk of his former self, trying to be idealistic during the Time War. So his character, even though it's been in other media, his character has been through a lot of development, and his optimism is he will always encourage in his companions and other characters to seize life, to look for the bright. He's an idealist, but he's also been through the ringer.
That surprises me that that's your choice of Doctor. I always assumed that you were a Tom Baker fan as your favourite.
No.
Oh,
he is popular, he is iconic, and he was around for a number of years, but no.
Oh, fair enough.
This changes every week. This because there's a lot out there. Whenever the Doctor Who magazine tends to run a poll every 10 years or so about what's the best story. The Caves of Androzani, Genesis of the Daleks, and Blink will usually turn up in the top 3, and I'm not going to argue with that. But to try and be more personal, have a personal spin, today I will say Remembrance of the Daleks, aka the first time that Sylvester McCoy's 7th Doctor appeared in a good story. It's a Dalek story, so that always helps, but it's also set in Coal Hill School in 1963. Throughout the 80s there had been a lot of continuity as the show appealed more to a fan-based audience, but it was usually gratuitous references that pleased the fans and nobody else. This was taking a setting and taking continuity in 1988, the 25th anniversary year, and making a proper story about racial prejudice and factions and the past, and making it engaging. You've got a group of supporting characters that technically aren't units, but they've got the same spirit to them, and they were engaging enough to appear in future spin-offs. And you have Ace whacking a Dalek with a baseball bat. You've got the Doctor going after a ancient Time Lord super weapon that's buried in a casket in a graveyard. And just when you're grateful that Davros hasn't turned up for the billionth time, he does turn up at the end, and you're happy that he's turned up, even though he's in a Dalek shell that looks like a Mum roll-on deodorant, as people have joked. But yeah, it's great dialogue, and the first time that you saw the 7th Doctor and went, oh, there's really is something here, a dark, manipulative. So he can be funny, because that's what Sylvester McCoy does, but he can be serious well and be really bloody good at it, thanks to the scriptwriter. The scriptwriters have finally got a hold on something good here, and then the show was cancelled the very next year.
Wow. So I'll be honest and say that I don't know much about Doctor Who.
Also, my favourite audio is Jubilee. My favourite novel is Human Nature. That's the original 7th Doctor version, not the David Tennant remake, although they did a damn good job remaking it with David Tennant. And my favourite comic strip, I'll say today, is The Flood.
So if you want to hear more about Doctor Who, then be sure to check out Andrew's.
If you want me to talk, please let us know. Please let me know. Don't know what form or format it would take, but if you have any questions about Doctor Who or my knowledge and opinion of Doctor Who, do let us know.
Yeah. Much. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Well, I can't think of anything right now, so I'm going to turn this over to you.
Okay. The title that comes to mind that I always remember is when it was announced. I was a huge fan in the 1990s. One person I hope to cover on the YouTube channel at some point is I'm a big fan of the British comedian Rick Mail, and I was a huge fan of The Young Ones as a kid growing up. I think we both were. And then subsequently later, my favourite show of Rick Mail's Bottom with Adrian Edmondson. And the fact that I found out that they were making a movie based on Bottom called Guest House Paradiso, that was a movie that as soon as I heard it, I'm like, I want to see this, I want to see it, I really want to see it. And I was constantly going, when's this coming out, when's this coming out? Because this was pre-internet, we didn't have release dates for this movie, and especially the fact that it was English, we didn't know when it was going to get a release. And then eventually I found out that it wasn't. I think it came and went in the cinemas. It didn't open in a lot of local cinemas, but when it was,
I went to see it at the cinema. It was an empty cinema. It was smelly, and in every respect, in my opinion, it was a miserable experience.
Wow. See, for me, as soon as I heard about it, I was like, I want to see this. I want to see this. And I wasn't going to cinema very much at the time.
No.
And so it was a case of when I saw a poster that was coming out in a local video rental shop, I was like, I've got to get this. I've got to get this. Then it was announced it was coming out on VHS to rent only. Couldn't buy it at the time. DVD wasn't being released, and I had to wait ages. And then eventually, I think the DVD came out to buy maybe 9 months later, something like that. So it was a long way.
It felt like an eternity.
Yeah. So that's the one memory that comes to mind of that. So that for me is the one Guest House Paradiso. To be honest, not a great movie. But I'm a huge fan of Bottom, and I loved the show, and so I wanted to see those characters. And the fact that it was not necessarily the characters from Bottom, they were renamed slightly, it kind of didn't feel as good as the Bottom TV show or even the live shows, which I'm a bigger fan of. So that's my choice. I don't know if you can make one for yourself.
I get the impression throughout this video there might be questions that I won't know the answer to, and then maybe 10 minutes after we finish I'll finally think of something, and I think this is one of them.
I might be like that too, so if you do hear a bit of silence, then we may say skip the question and whatever. So let's continue.
That's a damn good question, whoever that is.
Well, movies and music are two of my huge loves, and as the channel's gone on, you can probably guess that I'm a big fan of older things. I tend to cover a lot more of the older movies in my solo videos, and occasionally we cover some new stuff on What Did You Think, but normally the newer stuff I would say is sort of up Andrew's alley. Now, the More is essentially, well, partly because I came up with the name for the channel of Matt's Movies, Music and More. 4 M's.
Alliteration.
Yeah, 4 M's, and I thought that would be memorable. So, when the More to me represents other things that I find interesting too. If you look at the logo, there's not just movie and music characters on there, but there's also characters from TV shows that I like too. But the fact that I've got potentially other ideas for shows in the future, the More could represent anything. I mean, I like football. I'm a big football fan. I might cover things about football. I like video games. I might do video games. You never know. So the More is kind of open to different things, TV shows, you know. So that's essentially what More is. So thank you for that one.
And hopefully we'll be seeing more of that.
Well, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
I tried.
Oh, I'll answer the second one in a minute, but the first one that comes to mind of a director's cut that may exist but isn't available is I would like to see the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League.
If it even exists.
That would be one I'd like to see. One that does exist that I would like to see because I heard it makes the movie better, but it's a movie I actually like and a movie that people hate, is the John Frankenheimer action movie Reindeer Games. If you've ever seen it with with Ben Affleck and Charlize Theron. Good movie. That's a director's cut I would love to see. I love the film anyway. I think the film is very underrated. Any you think of?
I probably should have a list or something. I saw a list or a video some time ago, like top 10 director's cuts or movies that were chopped down significantly. I wish I could remember specific titles. The one impression I got from that is that there's an awful lot of you have directors, auteurs intent of I want my masterpiece, my 5-hour masterpiece to be on the screen untouched, and to producers going, for God's sake, calm the F down, we need to cut this down and get it to, we need as many screen times in the theatres as possible, which I understand for profit's sake.
I suppose there's a lot out there with Peter Jackson's movies, isn't there? Lord of the Rings, the King Kong, you know, they're all long director's cuts.
I'm going to say, it was Once Upon a Time in America, am I remembering that correctly? One I do remember that's purely for giggles.
Okay.
Heaven's Gate. I
Michael
hear
Cimino.
so much about that movie. I hear how it killed. If you've ever wondered why studios have final say on anything in Hollywood these days, that's the reason why. Michael Cimino said, I directed The Deer Hunter, I can do what the hell I want, I can do a 5-hour, 6-hour, whatever it is, epic, and the studio said, oh no you're not.
Are they ones that you would watch?
Yes. That, in the absence of any better answers, again I do apologise, I'm going to throw out, I want to see what Michael Cimino's great vision was for 5 or 6 hours or whatever it is. And if you said the director's cuts that already
The
exist,
favourites, yeah.
that already exist, because I was thinking of cheating and throwing a future answer on there,
Okay.
because I've seen It Chapter 2 recently, and the news going around is that the director Andy Muschietti has said, I want to combine, as we all suspected, I want to combine Chapter 1, I want to combine Chapter 2, I want to get all the deleted scenes in there and shoot some scenes I haven't even done yet, and make a great big 7-hour long super cut of it. I'm actually morbidly curious about that.
I think they did something similar in the 1990s with The Godfather on VHS. I think they combined 1 and 2 together and re-sequenced it, something like that.
Okay.
But regarding director's cuts I like, I mean, the ones that come to mind, I mean, I know out there you've got things like Blade Runner, the director's cuts and stuff, but the trouble is there's so many minimal changes, and Apocalypse Now as well, I mean, they've got minimal changes, so I can't really put them in. But for me, director's cuts that I like, I love the Dawn of the Dead director's cut, even though apparently it is not an official director's cut. They call it the director's cut, but it's not a director's cut at all. So that's probably my favourite.
Yeah.
And also maybe the Zack Snyder Dawn of the Dead as well. I actually think it's a better version than the theatrical one. There are some director's cuts I know that I hate, like the Butterfly Effect, which the ending of the director's cut, which was on DVD, I remember seeing it. The cinematic version, which was the studio cinematic version, had the happy ending, and the DVD version was the really, really dark and morbid ending. So that was one I didn't really like very much.
Yeah.
I think that's really all I can say about that, to be honest, off the top of my head.
You throw in favourite pre-existing director's cuts. Again, sorry I can't think of anything better right now, but I'll definitely throw in my approval for Blade Runner,
Which cut?
the final one.
Oh, okay, so the most recent cut of the movie.
Any cut that doesn't have him driving off into the sunset with his with Rachel.
Yeah, but the thing is that in every other cut, with the exception of the first one, you have that line that Roy Batty says, which is, "Give me life, fucker." And in every other one, it's "Give me life, father."
Oh yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, that's what comes to my
I
mind.
don't mind that. You probably think differently,
Yeah,
but
yeah. I've watched all those cuts, and even I still can't choose exactly which is the best cut, because they all have slight variations.
yeah, they do.
So.
Right. I've got here.
Wow.
I'd say since about January 2011, I've made it a hobby of mine to go to the cinema every week, which is where my hobby that is the template, which is the basis for At the Movies with Andrew, comes from. And I've got a document here of every film I've seen at the cinema since 2011. But looking at it, trying to look at it for inspiration, it's a 20-page. I think I'll go slightly earlier than that and say the one movie I've seen, I can remember seeing at the cinema that felt like a real transformative experience. It transported me, that's a better word. Transported me, really immersed me in its world and its story, to the extent that when it suddenly ends and the little girl goes away now, and I felt a real pang of, oh, I didn't want this to end. I was really captivated by this, and I felt enlightened. It was a really emotional experience that I felt enclosed in, and it felt special, spirited away.
Oh, okay.
The worst pre-2011, I could give multiple answers to this. Pre-2011, I'd say Catwoman. The Halle Berry Catwoman movie. I think it was especially during the slinky, you know, the bit when she becomes Catwoman for the first time and this obvious CGI walking along the rooftops bit. That was my first adult experience of, I've spent over £10 on a ticket for this movie. I have lost £10. I am never going to get this £10 back. This is horrible. This is an assault on my senses. I feel crap, and I feel crap for all the people around me watching this. For my post-2011 list and experience, up until recently, I would have said the worst movie of that project was Walking on Sunshine.
Okay.
Which I do, if you've ever heard of at all, I wouldn't blame you for not knowing it. It was a poor man's Mamma Mia. All the boys were preoccupied during the World Cup that year, so they released this very cheap jukebox musical for all the bored housewives, and it wasn't ABBA, it was featuring random songs from the 80s, and as happens with movies like this, I was almost the only one in there watching it with a couple of girls, and it starts out bad. It opens with the girl is at the airport, and the security guy is saying, "So what is the purpose of your visit? Business or holiday?" "Holiday, celebrate," you know, Madonna. And then later on, she meets up with her sister, and they go, "Oh my God, it's you!" You know, that high-pitched, girly thing that girls do when they bump into each other. And I'm going to get married to this guy. "Oh, you meet all these boys, don't you? There was Doug, and now there's this guy. She's got it. Yeah, baby, she's got it." And then the very next scene is Doug coming back and saying, "Oh, come on, baby, let's get back together. Remember all the times we've spent together. You were working as a waitress in a cocktail bar." That is, honest to God, the first 5-10 minutes of this movie is like, it's going to get worse, isn't it? And me and the girls I was with started dreading every time that someone would say that, oh no, they're going to butcher this song, because they've got no singing talent, and it's this whole movie of that was my worst cinema experience of recent memory. But another movie has recently toppled that. I won't mention it by name, but it has been covered in a separate video, and I'll just say Hannah Montana.
I had a feeling.
You know what it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's sorry, good girl. Went off on a tangent there, but that's the answer. Yeah,
That's cool. Okay, so from what I can picture of my logo, I have Robocop, which I have covered. I have David Bowie, which I haven't covered yet. I want to at some point. I've got the kit from Knight Rider. Knight Rider is a series I love. I have Heisenberg, Walter White from Breaking Bad, and the 60s Batman, Adam West and Burt Ward on the front as well. And at the bottom, I think it's like an underline on the channel's name, is a light cycle from Tron. They're all things I want to cover at some point. They're all things I really love, so it's a case of they'll all get covered at one point. Doing TV shows is kind of difficult when there's so many episodes and so much time you need to put aside for it. Especially with Breaking Bad, there's 6 seasons, Knight Rider's got 4, Batman's got 3 seasons, so there's quite a lot with TV shows. And with David Bowie, I mean, you've got 25 studio albums plus 2 albums as Tin Machine, so there's lots of things to cover on there. But all in good time. We've only been running a year, so it's like there's plenty of stuff to talk about out there.
Yeah.
We're not going to run out of content anytime soon, so.
No.
Long story about that actually, which is that if you have seen the first video of Robocop, you'll notice that I did use a microphone in that, which was this USB microphone I bought, and the audio did sound pretty terrible. And I've actually spent quite a bit of money trying to get ideal equipment to do the visual and the audio. So with the videos in general, they're actually filmed using my mobile phone. So I spend a lot of money trying to get a decent mobile phone that has good camera and video quality. So that's what I've done with that. The audio is actually captured through the phone as well. But I've tried over numerous times with different microphones and stuff like that. We actually experimented with one recently, and the audio was really bad. It either didn't pick us up or it was too distorted. So unless someone out there really knows how to help with microphones, I mean, I don't really want to use the lapel ones, which I've seen other YouTubers use, because I don't want to be attached to a cord, and then if I move or whatever, it then comes out of place and you can't hear me. I don't really want to do that. So I'm kind of happy with the way that the audio is. Granted, it could be louder in some videos, but we haven't been going very long, and I apologise to those of you out there who asked that question. I know that question came up a lot, so fingers crossed it's something we can hopefully work on in the future.
Pardon me while I try and remember a course that I did nearly a decade ago now, but yes, did a Master of Arts postgraduate degree in film studies at Kingston University, and to mark this occasion I am wearing a shirt.
Oh wow.
That's I got at the graduation ceremony. Can I take this shirt off, because it's got my name somewhere on the back?
Okay.
Sorry if it's killing time unnecessarily, but there you go. Is this camera picking this up? My name is somewhere on the morning ceremony.
Okay.
All right.
He came prepared then.
Yes, I did. Well, as I'm wearing blue this week, I thought blue vest. It's an academic course, really. It's like English or poetry. It's studying film texts, as we call them, or films. Maybe films individually, maybe directors, maybe a whole genre, maybe a whole country, maybe a whole period, like the new Hollywood movement of the 60s and 70s, maybe British cinema. We did tend to cover British cinema from like the 60s up till Richard Curtis in the 90s. That's as far as we got, really. Indian Bollywood cinema, that was a module. And certain theorists and academics that have since the Cahiers du Cinema movement of the 40s and 50s, the French, basically a bunch of French critics that got a whole bunch of Hollywood movies after the Second World War and started looking at them and going, oh, there's real subtext here, there are recurring themes, recurring directorial flushes, and they would interview these directors like Hitchcock and the film noir people about what was your feeling about filming it this way, or this character's journey. I didn't have any intention, I was just pointing a camera. That's what some of the early discussions were like, I believe. But there's a sort of growth of academic study about films, movies. I suppose one thing to be clear here, it might be the university that I went to, but if you naturally assume from the title that I did anything practical, this was an academic writing essays and dissertations course. anything practical, holding a camera or making a short film or anything like that. I did one module. There was a module that required us to do a 5-minute interview. That was a group project, and it was all right. It was about clothes and how your clothes define you as a person. But there was one interview we did in a car park, and we didn't notice at the time that a man on his motorbike got into the background and was just staring at us, staring at the camera, then to putting his helmet on. And fortunately, it worked as a joke. But I did one practical module, but at the Kingston University, there's a distinction between film analysis, criticism, and film making. I was very firmly in the analysis, academic, essay writing field. I suppose some work colleagues and friends have said, "Oh, are you qualified to be a film critic then?" I'd say it's probably not as straight, clear-cut as that. I'm sure you could have an interest in training in journalism or English and still have, and if you've got the interest, that would work too. But I suppose it has been very good. It was very good experience and very good training into the field of how very deep and intellectual auteur theory, semiotics, spectatorship, the male gaze. I had to read about all of these things over the course of 3 or 5 years, and like I say, I've forgotten most of it, but I've still got all the old textbooks in my attic. I've still got most of the films that I had to write essays about, so very happy memories.
Clearly, if you guys out there want to do a film studies course, then that's a little bit of an insight into it, I guess.
It's certainly, if you've excelled in the field of media studies, is that still a thing with
I think so.
the kids these days? And if you've got a knack for English, if you've got a knack for essay writing and essays and a good grasp of the English language, I'd say that's a very good start. I will say I enjoyed the experience of watching movies I never would have thought to look at otherwise. That was my first real. That might have been the stepping stone towards going towards your path of watching movies, because film noir, Italian neo-realism, French New Wave, westerns, Indian, not necessarily Bollywood, but Indian movies, British cinema from the 60s. Before this course, I would not have touched any of these things with a 10-foot barge pole, but by going to the university library every week and watching things, you build a knowledge, you build an interest, you develop enthusiasm for certain directors and certain films from across. It's incredible that film is a field that's interpreted across different countries, and the people that the other students, one or two have become friends with, and there's a couple of the tutors I still see every couple of years or from time to time, so I'll always have that. What I won't have is deadlines and word counts. I'm glad I don't have to think about those things anymore.
That's one thing If we had to review a James Bond movie, do you want to go first?
I'm caught between two at the moment. The first one I thought of when you read that out loud was Moonraker.
Okay.
Probably just because to be different, because that's probably one that most people don't tend to think of when they think of classic Bond movies. But it was one of those films that as a child, you watch a movie and then you keep watching it because you enjoy it so much because you're a child and you're enjoying the adventure and your critical faculties maybe haven't developed yet. I enjoyed Moonraker as a child. I really did. It's only when the ITV TV channel ran a marathon of James Bond movies, as they tended to do back then before some satellite channel got the rights. Watched them in row, watched Moonraker. It was only then that I thought, oh blimey, this James Bond goes into space to stop a villain from spreading a plague thing so his perfect race of people can take over the world. This is actually bloody stupid. But I enjoyed the Venice action sequences in it. I remember being gripped by the villain as a child. Jaws, even though I hadn't seen The Spy Who Loved Me, so I didn't have the context of who is this Jaws person and why should I worry about him. But the cable car sequence, maybe there's something to be gained from my memories of it, of watching it as an adventure versus as an adult watching this thinking, blimey, the franchise was going through a low point at this stage, looking at Star Wars and going, let's copy that.
Okay, and what's the second one you were thinking of?
GoldenEye.
Okay.
Because I remember going to see it at the cinema and thinking this is the best, even with my limited knowledge of watching the Roger Moore movies and what have you on TV, even then I could say that is the best James Bond movie they've done in years.
Okay. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a huge James Bond fan. I've got the box set of all the films, haven't seen every movie, but the two that I would probably cover if I wanted to do share something in common, which is that they were in sequence, these two. So there are two movies in a row that came out one after the other. So one of them would be License to Kill, which is the Timothy Dalton one, which I think is the only one that's rated 15 because of its excessive violence and stuff. And the other one is GoldenEye, Pierce Brosnan. I think that GoldenEye was the one movie that I saw of Pierce Brosnan's. I haven't seen all of Pierce Brosnan's. I saw that one and I saw The World Is Not Enough. And I thought The World Is Not Enough was pretty average, although the special effects for the action sequences were pretty cool. But GoldenEye was fantastic. What a great movie that is. Sean Bean as the rogue agent and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, this is a great film. Even if you're not a James Bond fan, GoldenEye is a perfect movie. And it also launched probably one of the greatest games to ever feature on the Nintendo 64, GoldenEye, which I did play, although I did struggle with it because it's really hard. But
I had to play it round at a friend's house.
You didn't have an N64?
No, but even someone like me could, because I'm not a first-person shooter guy, but I could easily pick this up and play it for hours. I think if you go back and look at it graphically, it's dated horribly, but and I appreciate that this everyone's got a lot of rose-tinted glasses for that game.
Yeah. You want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
If you've got an answer, I'm trying to be careful.
Again, like I say, because I'm not a huge James Bond fan, I mean, obviously everyone will go with Sean Connery. I love Sean Connery, I think he's great. Goldfinger is a great movie. I'm torn between Timothy Dalton, because I like The License to Kill. I don't remember The Living Daylights very much. Pierce Brosnan again for Goldeneye, it's a great movie. But the one James Bond movie that I really do like, actually, which again is kind of one of the overlooked ones, is On Her Majesty's Secret Service with George Lazenby. And it's because I think the movie's quite unique, because it sort of gives him the romantic backstory and stuff like that. And then there's little jokes here and there. You go like, oh, maybe you were looking for the other guy and stuff like that. You know, because this was when Connery disappeared, and then he came back to do Diamonds Are Forever, given the fact that on the Majesty's Secret Service flopped.
George Lazenby buggered off.
Yeah, but maybe it's kind of like that movie. I think that George Lazenby's all right, but maybe Pierce Brosnan. Maybe I think he's got that look, and given the fact that Pierce Brosnan was famous for being in the American TV series Remington Steele, which was basically James Bond, anyways. I think he was kind of born for the role. If I could have, I'm going to amend this question quickly because I kind of think I would throw this out there. But of current actors that are out there that I would have loved to have seen replace Pierce Brosnan as James Bond after he quit the role, instead of seeing Daniel Craig, I personally would have liked to have seen Clive Owen. I think Clive Owen would be the perfect choice to be James Bond, but sadly that never happened. And I think for many years he was people's favourite to be it. I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, I like Daniel Craig. That's not my answer.
I'm not a big fan of Daniel Craig.
I can see the Clive Owen thing though. It's funny to think that 2005 everyone was saying that Daniel Craig is going to be awful, and yet here we are waiting for the last movie to come out, and we all think of him as Bond now. It's how long he's been there.
So I'm not a big fan of him personally. I just don't like him very much.
Yeah. I've got a soft spot for Roger Moore, but for the dignity's sake, I'm going to go kind of like the Doctor Who thing with the what did I grow up with? I grew up with Pierce Brosnan.
Okay, so at least we've got that in common then, I guess. Well, we have covered one already, Nebraska.
That does not count, and you know it.
Yeah, we did.
Yes, I would very much like to know if we're ever going to cover any old pre-1960s black and white movies, please, because Lord knows I watched enough at university.
There's potential out there. I mean, the ones that come to mind for me that are black and white that I personally would enjoy would be the Universal horror monsters and things like Plan 9 from Outer Space, and the Hammer horrors, that sort of thing.
Yeah, you see, there's mileage, there's material in that.
But the problem is that I assume that you would want to talk more about the classic black and white cinema of things like by Frank Capra and the movies of Howard Hughes and stuff like this. You know, these sort of background things. You know,
it's
Casablanca. Michael Curtiz.
It's something I'm familiar with, and another funny tangent I'll mention briefly is that I would occasionally rope in my mum or grandma into watching these film studies movies with me to get some kind of outsider's perspective, which a couple of tutors went, oh, that's cute, that's nice, I appreciate that. But I can definitely say that definitely my grandma would only ever watch old black and white movies with me. If it was anything beyond 1950, she couldn't understand it, but fair enough. But there were a couple of bonding moments there, like Now Voyager. She loved Now Voyager, and there was a lovely evening watching Now Voyager with her.
Okay. So another ones that come out to mind straight away is like Norman Wisdom classics, black and white ones. I like them a lot. But I mean, we're in 2019 at the moment, so in 7 years' time, if the channel's still going, maybe we could celebrate the 100th anniversary of Metropolis, a silent black and white movie.
I would appreciate that. It's one of my favourite movies.
Okay, so I hope that answers your question out there, viewers. Great question. Sounds like me, to be honest. I definitely would love to do that. I go on the internet every now and then. I'm a Blu-ray. I'm a physical media kind of guy. I will go out there and buy movies and steelbooks in particular. But I tend to buy steelbooks of movies that interest me. If the film doesn't interest me, then I don't really want to buy them. But I do buy a lot of steelbooks. I collect all the Marvel and the DC ones. The new wave of the Marvel and DC films, not the older ones. I don't always like all the older ones. Some of them I do, but Yeah, as you say this, there probably will be some unboxing videos coming up in the near future. I have planned on doing that for Blu-rays and steelbooks and CDs, but it would be, and I'll be honest with you, it will be stuff I buy. I'm not sent anything. The channel's not sent anything by studios or anything to review. So we're not getting paid to talk about anything. We talk about the things because we want to talk about them. So when the day comes that people send us things or people will pay us to review things, then we'll tell you up front that that's what's happening. But at the moment, there's nothing like that, sadly. But no, I hope to do that. Okay. Wow. I don't know if you got any idea.
Nothing in the way. It's probably the way my brain is wired, or that I don't really think about this sort of thing, is that I don't have any famous actors in mind. I did have a germ of an idea as a teenager, because you think up with crazy ideas as teenagers, and maybe you'll get your friends roped into it and you'll film in a park somewhere, but I've never even got that far. You know Guy Ritchie or Tarantino. The more I think about it now, the more I think they're two separate. But you think of crime dramas with snappy dialogue and convoluted plans and shootouts and "oi, fuck off, mate," good gangster things. I wanted to do a parody of that.
I'm surprised no one else has.
I don't know if it would have been something that's more of a pastiche, or maybe a proper Naked Gun-esque over the top silly thing, because hey, I like the Naked Gun. I like over the top silly comedies like that. I had a name and a tagline. Mr. Tangerine. Once upon a time, Dave had no life, no friends, no nothing. Then he took charge of an orange smuggling operation. Now things are very much the same. So, like that, you know? If I ever had any directing or screenwriting aspirations, that was what I do. Like I say, I don't have any famous actors in mind. I look at my pub friends or my work colleagues and I think, what could even though I am not really into this, there's a little dark corner in my brain that I can't help but think, what could I cast you as? What could I cast Julie at work as? So I know that's not terribly exciting. It's not Robert De Niro or anything, but that's as far as my brain really thinks on the matter.
Fair enough. I thought of a couple of ideas. I'll just say them briefly because I don't really want to go into full stories, but I kind of thought of a horror movie idea that would be quite unique, in which murders are committed and every murder is caught through the eyes of the killer. So you, the viewer, are watching like the opening scene in the original Halloween by John Carpenter, when you see Michael Myers wearing his mask and you're seeing the killings happen through the mask. I kind of would like to see a movie like that, and you'd have the killer have gloves on, so you wouldn't know what gender they were or what ethnic colour they were or anything like that. So by the end of the movie, it would reveal, and the person who would say to you, go, "Oh, it's you," and then points at you, the audience. But no doubt movies like that have probably already been done.
So basically, Hardcore Henry, but it's a horror movie.
Hardcore Henry or Maniac, actually, yeah, very sort of similar, the Elijah Wood remake. And then the other one was like a detective thing, a bit like a Midnight Run type movie with Jason Statham playing like sort of a cop who he's lost his family. His family been killed by a drug dealer, and he's kind of he's alive. He wants to kill himself, but he wants to get justice and get the people that are doing wrong in life and avenge his wife's murder. So maybe a bit gladiatorish, I guess. But other than that, that's all I've really got. But you know, I mean, if I could be in a movie, I mean, I'd love to be in like a zombie movie where you're like trying to survive the zombie apocalypse or something like that. You know, like in the shopping mall, a bit like Dawn of the Dead, which I've probably mentioned more than once already on this channel. But let's go on, I guess. Okay. Wow. Straight away, a lot of people say music videos would be like Michael Jackson's Thriller, a-ha's Take On Me, Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer, I guess. I suppose for me, one of my favourite music videos that stands out, and I'm going to pick something that's not obvious. I'm going to go with The Wild Boys by Duran Duran, which is from their 1984 live concert / mini film called Arena. Now, given that what we do on What Did You Think, we cover movies, I kind of would love to do Arena at some point on here, but the thing is, I don't know if it's up your alley, given, are you a music fan of Duran Duran from the 80s?
No.
No?
The blunt answer, I'm not into music as you are.
So maybe it might just be a solo video to do in the future. But yeah, The Wild Boys is great because it's got this amazing imagery with Simon Le Bon, the lead singer, being attached to like a windmill, and the windmill, the thing is propelling into like the water, so his head is submerging underwater. He nearly died making that video because he was held underwater for quite a long time in one particular thing when the windmill broke down. So Russell Mulcahy, who would go on to direct Razorback and Highlander, he nearly killed the lead singer of probably the most popular group of the 1980s at that time. So yes, that's one of my favourite videos.
Okay, and our next.
Never been to a movie festival. Never been to a music festival, although I have been to a couple of one day. I've been to a couple of one day gigs that have been at festivals, but one day only, and that's normally through invites. But no, I go to concerts quite a lot, mostly see groups from the 1980s, so I won't go into them because there's a huge list and given the time. So what about you?
I think since about 2008, 2009 maybe, I've made it a hobby. I've made it a habit that at least one film I will go to the London Film Festival every year. That's first or second week of October, so it's coming up at the time of recording this. But I would book 3 or 4 movies, partly because of price, but also because it feels like wandering around. They tend to screen these films in Leicester Square cinemas, and it feels like taking time out of my personal schedule to go 3 or 4 movies is enough.
Yeah.
But wow, it is an experience every time. It's depending on how big. Either if it's a really big movie. I remember the very first one I went to see was Frost Nixon. Okay. And that was packed. That was a premiere. That was the Odeon Leicester Square Cinema. That was a cacophony of laughter, all the jokes at all the historical figures going, oh, that's Toby Jones is playing that character, and Frank Langella's climactic, I say, when the president does it, that means it's not illegal. And he realises what he said on camera. Like, well, I figure some people might not agree with that. And everybody burst into laughter. That felt like a real sharing the love of the movies experience there. And other than movies that you wouldn't have never have heard of otherwise, like Death of a Man in the Balkans, that's a small movie. It was filmed entirely from the perspective of a web camera. It's this static web camera thing throughout the whole movie. It starts off with a man who commits suicide, and then his body's lying on the floor of his flat the whole time, and people are coming in and going, oh my god, he's dead, and did you kill him? No, I didn't kill him. We have to wait for the ambulance to arrive, and they're waiting for the ambulance to arrive, and oh look, here's his cognac, here's a toast to the dead man. Here's another toast to the dead man. You've drunk 6 glasses already. I'm honouring this tradition. And is that my toolbox? He never gave my toolbox back, you cheap bastard. I'm glad you're dead. And the ambulance arrives. And, oh no, we've got another body to pick up here. Take this ticket and give it to the police later. And then more and more people come in, like the Undertaker, who he called in advance, and pizza delivery. Are you fucking shitting me? Pizza delivery. And policemen come in, and then oh, that web camera, it's been turned on the whole time. Can we turn it off? No, we can't turn it off until the coroner's arrived. Oh, well, I wanted to say that this man was a close personal friend, and I'm sorry he's dead, and we're very sad. But you know, there's little movies like that, foreign little movies like, I could go on and on, but that is something I look forward to every year.
Okay.
Years being a big fan of Cutting Crew, I got into them in the late 90s, although I've always loved I Just Died Young, and I went to go and see him live as a gig that he was doing in London. I went with my dad and met him there, and I was very afraid. And the first time I ever went to a gig on my own, when I went to a gig, was to see Cutting Crew, and I got to meet Nick again, and I went and saw him a couple of times on the tour, and we became really good friends, and we're still friends to this day, and we're very, very close. And as soon as I told him that I wanted to do a YouTube channel, he said, I'm definitely interested, and he said, I reckon we can get more people interested. So in regards to that, I'm so grateful to get Nick involved in it. We are planning on maybe doing some more in the future together, hopefully. Does that answer the question? There's two answers behind that. Number one is schedules. Schedules of the people that I know, celebrity people. They've all got busy lives with gigs, making albums, etc. And also financial as well. As I've said already on this channel, we don't make any money on this channel, so I can't really keep putting money into the channel when I'm not getting any money back. I've paid out a lot of money to buy equipment, and this is not me ranting or anything like that, but I've spent close to a four-digit number to try and invest in the equipment and the technology to do this. So I feel I cannot afford to keep putting money in to go and drive to places, to go and interview people, unless the viewership goes up, or if we can get backing from you guys out there, because we do have Patreon, but no one's backing us at the moment. But if you guys do feel that you want to support, email us and we'll see if we can come up with some way that you can help contribute to the channel. So until that happens, at the moment I can't say, but I hope that we can do it. It all depends on the demand. So yeah, they don't pay us.
That's a fair point.
They don't pay us, so why should we advertise companies that don't pay us?
Okay.
I'll let you go with this one first.
I have some spare time in between work, so I tend to browse around a bit. Off the top of my head, Red Letter Media is a great one in terms of their production quality and the
Me too.
some of the real obscure, trashy stuff that they'll come up with.
Best of the Worst is the one I watch. I don't watch any of their other content, but Best of the Worst is great. Other than that, for me, Oliver Harper and Val Verdi, Cinemassacre as well, Angry Video Game.
Jeremy Johns, Chris Stuckman, sort of snappy reviewers like that are very snappy and for the laughs, but they do have good laughs and they do bring up good points.
Can I say Channel Awesome as well?
If it's fashionable to do so. If we can avoid rom-coms, then please.
They'll come up at some point maybe, but I'm not a huge fan of those either. Night at the Roxbury comes to mind. A movie I love a lot with Will Ferrell and Chris Kattan. I really don't think Andrew would probably like it.
I'm not a big fan of Will Ferrell at the moment.
Okay.
Hannah Montana.
And what would you say is a movie you think that I wouldn't like that you want?
Yeah, I think there's a better answer that I won't think of until if we stop recording, and I'll suddenly go, oh my god. But something that I'm morbidly curious about is Twilight, which I've heard you say on occasion that you won't touch, and I can respect that. But I don't particularly. So is the question?
The question, the movie you like that you think I wouldn't like that you'd want to do.
Okay, well, I've fudged that answer up because I don't like it. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
In that case, I can't really think of anything right now. I'm sorry.
Fair enough. That's fine. Well, I'd love to, but
can we afford it?
well, because again, it's all down to finances and stuff. I personally couldn't do it myself. I think if we were to look into that, we would have to contact actual manufacturers who could do it. I'd be open for T-shirts, and I think pint glasses would be nice, given that we drink in pint glasses when we do our videos here, and we try not to have any branding on the glasses. Again, no free advertisement for companies that aren't paying us. But no, I'd like to do it, but I just don't know. But again, it's all about financial stuff. So. Can I go first?
Yeah, you go first, if you will.
Right. Well, straight away, obviously, one of the ones I'm most proud of is the celebrity edition of What Did You Think with Nick Van Eed. We had an absolute blast doing that video. If you haven't seen it, it was a real blast. One of my favourite videos that I think I've done with Andrew on the show is our special What Did You Think, which we did an on-location filming for the movie Psychomania, which we went to Walton-on-Thames and did some showing what the town looks like now and what it looked like back in the movie. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was really well done. And regarding solo videos of mine, my favourite solo video I think I did was for The Black Panther, which was a movie that I watched based on the real life killer and criminal. And I did my research, not just watching the film, but also online as well. So I learned a lot in that too, and I think I covered it pretty well. I don't know how you feel about the videos that you've done on the channel.
I would gladly accept the Psychomania, the location filming, the effort that was put into research, and how well my voice came out in those outdoor sequences, and just how well put together that end product felt in the end.
I'm proud of that.
Favourite? I'll give a shout out to I'm going to look like an idiot now. White Water Rapids.
Oh, Whitewater Summer.
That's it.
Oh, because you liked your improvised song.
My improvised joke, which I'm embarrassed about. I don't consider myself a singer, but it was a joke that was made up on the spot. You really liked it. Other people seem to like it. That was probably a moment early on in making those videos that I felt, oh, I can actually competently do this.
Can I say something that I think is important as well to address, which is that I think you mentioning that video was the beginning of when we both started to feel comfortable doing this.
That's something clicked, yes.
Yes, because I think the early videos, I think we really struggled to get our banter and also our personalities on camera. And now I think when you see us on camera, we are being ourselves rather than trying to go with like a scripted thing. I mean, all of this is always improvised anyways, but you know, that's how I feel about it. That's hard. Oh God.
Can I honestly say that my brain is melting at this point?
Okay, guilty pleasure. Normally, guilty pleasure is something that a lot of people don't like and that I do. Again, I suppose something like Night at the Roxbury comes to mind. A lot of people don't like that movie, and yet I think it's really funny. Napoleon Dynamite as well, maybe. I quite like my comedies, so I suppose some of those movies would probably come to mind. So I'll just go with those off the top of my head.
I don't know if it's just comedy. I don't know if it's considered a bad comedy necessarily, but I feel like I could almost recite Hot Shots Part Deux at this point.
Yeah, that's a good movie. I remember that. I loved you in Wall Street. Yeah. Ah, you always see me drinking. Yes. This is cola, store-bought cola. No branding being advertised here whatsoever. He has store-bought lemonade,
Which I try not to drink on camera because I want to be professional.
I get thirsty, so I tend to drink a lot. So yes, that's that. It's not alcohol, I promise.
Okay.
Favourite and worst. Well, can I just throw out there Dawn of the Dead as one of my favourite sequels? It's a great movie. It's a film that I absolutely love. I think it's probably one of the greatest horror movies of all time. It's definitely in my top 5 movies ever, Dawn of the Dead. As you know, I'm a big zombie fan, big Romero fan, so hopefully we'll cover that film at some point on the channel. I suppose we could throw a shout out to Aliens as well, which is a great sequel, and Terminator 2 as well, of course. Bad sequels. I'll let you think of some good ones. I'll think of some bad ones.
Well, it's terrible to think that I can easily think of a worst, and I'm struggling to think of a best. I'll throw Terminator 2 in there because that might have been. Well, that was I saw that on Laserdisc. My father was always investing in the what he thought was the latest technology, so he was a Betamax salesman for a while.
I see.
And we had a Laserdisc player in the house for a long time, even after that failed, because it could at least function as a CD player. And you may have seen videos about Laserdisc. Yeah, everything you see about them, these big hulking things that could probably slice your throat if you're not careful. Absolutely true. And I watched it with my mum and dad on Laserdisc, and that was quite the experience for a 10, 11-year-old like me.
I've got some other good sequels I just thought of. Evil Dead 2, which I think is a superior sequel to the first one, and Army of Darkness as well, which I love as well. But regarding bad ones, wow, that is a challenge. I mean, there's a lot of bad ones in the franchises, like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, but then that's really nitpicking.
Everyone is, I think it's accepted at this point that Highlander 2 is in the canon of, sequels that are not only bad, cheap, shoddy productions in themselves, but as a sequel it completely rewrites the rules, and not in a good way, and is just very silly. But I am actually going to say that Highlander the Source is even worse than Highlander 2. It is the point where even with the TV show and all the pointless sequels that came up, this was the exact moment that the Highlander franchise seemingly died, because nothing else has come out after this. And I heard about it coming out, and then for years it seemed to be stalled, and then it finally came out as a Sci-Fi Channel movie, and it looks exactly like a Sci-Fi Channel movie would look.
Wow.
With a climactic fight where they fight each other in fast motion against this green screen, and the villain burrows into the ground and screams, "Do it, you immortal fuck!"
I've thought of one.
And then he just explodes.
Yeah.
"I'm cursed forever!" And then that's the end of the movie.
Wow.
And also, they do a cover of Queen's Princes of the Universe. And it sounds like a student band singing, "Here we are." It's like, you've murdered Highlander, you've murdered these characters, quite literally in some cases. You've murdered Queen,
Wow.
you've murdered any potential that the TV series gave this franchise, and you can't go anywhere with it. Congratulations, you've killed Highlander.
I'm going to throw out there the worst one, sequel, which just came to my mind. 4, The Dark World. Just going to throw that out there.
Yeah, I thought it's interesting. 4 surprised everybody with how they made that concept work, and then the second one was just Christopher Eccleston as a cardboard cutout, and let's just focus on Loki because everybody loves Loki. Thank God for Ragnarok.
Yeah, that's a great sequel. Right.
On the channel.
Yes, but I'm not telling. Yes, we've got plenty of ideas for the channel to come up with. There are lots of ideas that I often discuss with Andrew. We often talk about things, and we have ideas that in the new year there will be some new series potentially coming. But again, it's all about schedules and timing, and obviously getting together, because it's difficult with our work schedules and to get our work-life balance. So we do this as and when we can get time. So.
Well, nothing recently because jump scares are obvious. It's not even horror. It's provoking a reaction in someone. Dude, that was scary, wasn't it? No, it wasn't. It was a physical reaction, and yet filmmakers think that this is what we need for horror. But to try and sensibly answer this question, another something I saw with my parents, and we rented it, and it surprised me. Event Horizon.
Okay.
I could tell it was a spooky ship in space thing on the cover, but even that didn't prepare me for the visceral imagery and the shocks and the scares, and Sam Neill bald and scarred and saying, where we're going we don't need ice.
For me,
yeah.
For me, I'm trying to think that scary, because a jump scene for me, a great jump scene in a horror movie, but it didn't scare me, it just surprised me, was the bus scene in Final Destination, in which the woman just goes, well, you can just drop fucking dead, like that. It's a bit like a cartoon, watching a cartoon, and that happened.
Yeah.
But the one scene that comes to mind that actually scared me, made me jump out of my seat, and this is because of, we had a Laserdisc at home as well, and there was a movie we had on Laserdisc which you're going to say, that scared you? The Mask, starring Jim Carrey. There is a moment in The Mask, and we had surround sound audio, so we had speakers behind the sofa as well as at the front, and it's this moment when the robbers are about to go and steal money from the bank, and it's absolutely silent, and all of a sudden the mask breaks out the bank like a Tasmanian devil spinning, and you hear this loud bang and everything like that. It's the only time I've ever jumped, and that's the one scene I always remember from The Mask. But I suppose it would be equivalent to if I watched Die Hard, and the moment when John McClane drops the explosive down the air shaft, and then you hear the loud explosion. It's because of the noise that surprised me, not really what was on the screen, just the noise. Star Trek. The original series with William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy.
As a whole, simply because it's lasted longer and has more spin-offs and variation and weight and lore to it. I'm sorry about this, but it's Star Wars, but I have to instinctively pick Star Trek.
Okay.
I'll say Next Generation. That's what I grew up with.
Okay, so that was our first ever Q&A video. I'm sorry that we rambled.
No, people don't want to know about us.
For all of you out there who asked certain questions that we didn't get through, I apologise. Hopefully we'll cover them maybe in year 2.
There will be another time, I'm certain.
Yeah, hopefully year 2. So thank you everyone again for writing in. We really appreciate it. It was a blast.
It was.
Yeah, and we got to know things about each other that we probably didn't know already, even though we've known each other years, so, So, thank you everybody. Don't forget to check out our social media pages and all the videos that we've been making on the channel. thank you for sticking with us for this last year. Without you, this wouldn't be possible. So I'm very
Yeah.
grateful, and I think Andrew is too. So thank you, everybody, and all the very best to you. Bye bye.
Imaginary party popper.
Yay! Yay! Bye.